All right, Gyi. It's
Let's do
time for another
this.
episode of Clienting.
Clienting.
Yeah. This is pretty exciting. This one is like full circle, very exciting. I can't wait to talk about it.
Io tambien.
I don't know what that means. I only speak French.
Oh, how do you say me too in French?
Moi aussi.
There you go.
There we go. Okay,
Perfect.
so the super exciting thing about this, I know we're getting into marketing trends. This will come out in February, but that's all right.
Mhm.
Because what we like to do is we like to hear what other people have to say, what they think the marketing trends will be, and then we can break them down and talk about what we think the real marketing trends will be. And so,
Oh,
flashback to 2018. And I went through and listened to our whole episode from last year, which was our first episode, by the way. It was the
wow.
first. Yeah,
This is a milestone.
it is. This will be episode 30, and that was episode one. It's crazy.
Hooray. We're
Hooray
still
us.
here.
Yep, still here. It's been a year. Um,
Oh,
but in our episode last year, I had a terrible cold. So I am happy that I don't have a cold again.
that's good because you didn't just get over a terrible cold.
Apparently, it was actually the flu.
Oh,
Yeah.
brutal.
Made better by a flu shot, but still terrible.
Does the
So,
flu shot actually help when you actually have the flu?
it actually does. She said that it lessens the effects by about 50%.
There you go.
Yep.
Talk to your doctor, though. We are not trained medical people.
Yeah.
This is
Yes,
not the
exactly.
WebMD podcast.
Exactly. Maybe for the, oh, and another thing that will be interesting for this year is we are going to try to, like this one, try to video record our podcast so people can find them on YouTube. Um, but obviously, the audio version will not have video because it's audio.
That's right. For those that are new to the show, audio is not video. That's actually our digital marketing trend, first digital marketing trend.
No. Okay, so let's quick go over what we talked about last year.
All right.
Gyi, do you have your notebook up?
I do.
Great.
Flashback to 2018, what we talked about then.
Yes. First things first, voice search.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
You want to talk about that or do you want to give the bullets first?
bullets. So we talked about with voice search, we basically just talked about how we think that it's still kind of long down the road. It's not really voice search yet, it's more voice assistant.
Mm-hmm. I feel the same way as I did back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are some new cool-ish things, but some of these trend things too, it's like as you start to think about these things over longer time periods, you realize it like takes time for this stuff to actually gain traction.
Yeah,
So yeah,
totally.
I think there's been some movement on voice search, but for lawyers, I would say keep your eye on it, but don't drop everything you're doing and try to start voice searchizing your website.
Yes.
It's kind of what I said last year, I think.
Yep.
Some.
100%.
Okay.
Mobile friendly everything.
Yes, that is for sure important. That's almost though. I don't know if that's like a. Oh, we were probably talking about like mobile first indexing, which I think we're now. That's here, and for most sites, I would say you should be getting Google Search Console notifications that your site has been switched to the mobile first index. And I have seen a couple of those still coming through, so maybe that's still trendy. But you definitely should have a mobile friendly site and not have any mobile issues in Search Console, and make sure that your site is usable on various mobile enabled devices.
Nice. So we're 2 out of 2 on our for our trend predictions, like what we what we thought for last year, which feels pretty great. We also talked about Google My Business updates, And there were so many over 2018. Like, that was the huge topic. Everyone was all about GMB, and we've talked a bunch about it. And the thing that happened in December of 2018 for me was that I realized that Google is still working on it and figuring it out and trying to find out how exactly to how much GMB should play into search results and figuring out their algorithms. Because what seemed to happen was that they had it count for a little bit too much in the algorithm. And so in December, they kind of pulled back a little bit, or November, December, and made some changes because people stopped seeing the increase in search results that they were seeing in the rest of the year. So,
Well, yeah, I was be about GMB. That's going to be still going to be the instance of first impression for most legal services consumers, where they look you up by name or firm name, or look up by a non-branded search. And I would say be prepared for more sponsored / paid / advertising opportunities, listings in the local space. But we've been kind of hearing about that for a while, and it still hasn't. I mean, we have, like, you see from time to time, you see one ad spot, but I would anticipate we see more in the local packs. But be about GMB for sure.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong, people. Like, I'm not trying to say that it's not important. It is incredibly important to have a full, robust profile that you're adding posts to. It's just that I think it's still getting figured out. And so while they're figuring out the process for it and what they're going to add and how important different elements are, do all the things.
Although, I don't know, this looks like they're deprecating the messaging, so maybe you can't do messaging anymore. But here's a trend idea for GMB. We'll go out on a limb and say maybe we'll see more of an integration between Google My Business and other Google products like Hangouts.
Yes, I bet we will.
I saw that somewhere floating around, so I could see that happening.
Yeah.
There you go. Trend.
There you go. Boom.
Prediction.
See what happens. Next thing we talked about was visual search, and kind of more the video results that you would get in searches, which I will talk more about this in my 2019 predictions, but I think we thought we would see more of it in 2018, and we are, and I think we'll continue to see more and more.
Okay.
Nothing on your side, Gyi?
I don't remember what we said. I don't see, I mean, the big quote unquote buzz phrase you hear all the time is like YouTube is the second biggest search engine, and that's true. But for a regular search, I still don't see a ton of videos coming up in results.
I mean, I'm not seeing them all the time. Okay, so I'll go into what I was going to talk about, because videos are still on my trend list. But what I am seeing more of, and I'm really looking forward to, is to see kind of how it plays out for the regular marketplace. But for now, there are a bunch of celebrities that if you Google, how does Gwyneth Paltrow stay in shape? Like, she'll have a 1-minute little quick video on, I work out with my trainer, Tracy Anderson, and I love the Tracy Anderson method, and I eat really healthy. And so they have them, Google has them record these little videos and send them. And then that's what comes up in the search results. And you see a whole carousel of all of these different videos. And so I think we are going to see more and more of that across the entire marketplace search results. And who knows who is going to be recording those videos and how they'll select them for regular questions like, how do I file for divorce in Arkansas or something like that. But I think that is going to be happening in the next year or two.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks. That's bold. Non-celebrity videos in the knowledge panels.
I think so. I don't know. I could be
I like it.
totally, it could be more of like a 5 year thing, but
I like it.
I think that's where things are going.
Okay, there it is. That's out there. I like it. I haven't seen any non-celebrity yet. I don't really do a lot of celebrity searches anyway, but I have seen those.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
In 2018, the last thing we talked about were changes to Google and primarily the proximity and kind of hyper local focus.
Yeah, that's going to continue. I don't think anybody's really arguing that Google's not getting better at signals relating to proximity, distance, and personalization in terms of prior search behavior and all that kind of stuff. I think that they've been pretty clear that they want to go that way. And yeah, I think the other thing that's going to continue to happen is the actual hardware is going to get better and better depending on who you are and how you look at it, but better at actually identifying our locations. So, when military grade GPS is tracking us within 5 meters, which probably is scary for a lot of people, obviously that's data that search engines want to use. In fact, not to go down the rabbit hole of the Google CEO's congressional testimony, but that was one of the things that he was asked about and they talked about. And I think it's unquestionable that Google is going to continue to move in that direction, especially for a local advertising standpoint. There's very strong justification from an advertising standpoint to say when people are performing searches for local businesses, they want the most local and proximate results. Yeah. So I think we'll see more of that.
100%. Speaking of scary things, did you see the article on the Facebook 10 years, how has aging hit you, the 10-year age difference thing, where there was, I'll have to look up and I'll have to put in the show notes who it was, but I read an article from someone who said, yeah, I am not a super nervous like conspiracy theorist person, but I chose not to do that because there's something about 10 years ago and now, and thinking about using your facial recognition to track what you'll look like and how that could be used against you.
I did see that. Yeah, I mean, these are data companies, so the more data that you give them, the better their companies quote unquote work.
Yep.
Data is the new oil. I've heard.
All right, let's go into present times now. That was 2018. What did we think was going to happen? Now we're in 2019, people. 2019. And so what are the marketing trends that we just kind of pull a few lists and see what, connect the dots between the list and see what kind of the big marketing companies or even legal marketing trends that we've seen people write about and decide whether or not we agree with them.
Okay.
So first things first, AI and intentional advertising. Basically kind of like Facebook, Instagram algorithms.
What about them?
So there is a bunch of stuff happening now, speaking of Facebook and all of their targeting, with messenger ads, video ads, and more targeted content, just kind of dialing in who they are showing content to. And beyond just like your search history in Google, more based on your personal preferences, the possibility of Google kind of mining your personal email if you have a Gmail account, picking out keywords to show you different ads, that sort of thing. All of that is in here. So how is that apply at all to legal marketing in 2019?
So I think there's little question that we'll see a trend towards more more better targeting. Again, in order for these platforms to continue to generate value for advertisers, they have to be more targeted. So, the more specific, the more custom audience, the more filtering criteria that the social platforms provide you, in theory, the more targeted they get. I think there's no doubt that that's going to happen. AI and algorithms as they relate to this, I think, I think a lot of marketers and advertisers and legal tech people still oversell AI. I think that we're moving in the direction of AI is playing a bigger and bigger role, but one of the things that a lot of people forget is that a lot of this AI stuff and machine learning, especially as it relates to, you hear things like programmatic bidding and stuff, it's still garbage in and garbage out. And so if your data is not solid when you're putting it in or teaching the machine on it, the training data is not great, you're going to get bad machine decisions. And I also think that for me, like if in my trend, I'm actually maybe a little bit counter to this. I think there's going to be more of a trend towards more fundamentals. So I think some of this, there's always going to be people that are going to be like selling on the shininess of all these new technologies. But for the most part, like the fundamentals of messaging and the creative and intent and understanding like how your business or firm is uniquely qualified to help somebody, I think those are going to have a return to prominence. Whereas, for Facebook and Instagram and Google, AI and big data and all this stuff is like extremely relevant. If you're a solo or small or mid-sized law firm, yes, I think that mining CRM data is important, and understanding data from a perspective of delivering great service to clients is important. But trying to focus so much on AI as it relates to advertising, I think that it's probably not worth it, in my opinion.
Do you also put chatbots in that box?
So, and it's a great question. I was actually thinking about that. It's a great question. I think chatbots are great. I don't know how AIE chatbots are. I think a lot of chatbots are, you feed the chatbot some questions to prompt people at your site and then make a decision tree about what question comes next, which I think is fine. But let's face it, like these chatbots are not like general AI where they're like, you're asking Hal to open the pod bay doors and it's like trying to make moralistic decisions about whether or not to do that. It's much more basic. And so like, is that AI? I think that's a great question, is like what falls into the bucket of AI? Whether we're approaching, go ahead.
If somebody's read The Most Human, a chatbot would 100% be AI and trying to have a conversation with someone or figuring out what someone says and then how to respond back to them based on your coding and your algorithm is like,
so then every user interface that asks a question is AI then under that definition, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
That's the thing is like, what are we talking about here? And I think my big thing is that AI is just being oversold as this like, oh my gosh, everything's AI and big data. And a lot of small firms, a lot of the ones that we work with, at least, it's like they don't have enough marketing data to actually to make informed decisions. So there's like a data scarcity issue. And AI wise, yeah, sure. I think that you could pigeonhole some things into calling them AI, but I'm also like when I think AI, I'm like, okay, you're deriving insights and analysis. The machine's deriving insights and analysis based on some kind of data. And you see some of that with like Google Analytics, which I think is valuable and has context. I mean, we see this with, not to go down this rabbit hole, but like Yahoo's fantasy football site uses AI to write up recaps. And I think there's some value in that, but I wouldn't be outsourcing my analytics and insights and decision making in terms of marketing into to the machine quite yet, especially in light of what I've seen with a lot of these programmatic buys where it's like they bought a bunch of stuff based on this black box AI and show me where it actually translated to some kind of fee. And then the answer to that is like, well, just trust us. The AI is working. It's like, I don't know.
I don't know.
So
We'll see.
And like I said, I mean, we're talking about 2019 trend. That's my other thing too, is like, I'm not anti-AI by any means. Well, not philosophically against it. I'm not saying that I think that AI is not going to continue to play a larger and larger role in really many aspects of our lives. I just don't think that 2019 is going to see a significant change in how we're using AI to market our firms. Put it that way.
I hear that. I mean, the only well, because we did talk about chatbots, the only thing I would say to disagree with that is I think if you have a smart, well, I shouldn't say smart, but a more if you put a little bit more money and time and energy into your chatbot, like Patrick Palace's PatBot, I think that can be something that you would use as a competitive advantage in your marketing of like, hey, you don't even have to necessarily talk to a lawyer right away. You can chat with our PatBot and see if our firm fits your needs. But other than that, I would have to agree with you.
It's okay to disagree.
Well, because I think most people would feel really uncomfortable with a potential lawyer messaging them on Facebook just out of the blue without having any sort of a relationship, being like, you know, not they wouldn't say this in the message, but like the algorithm detects that somebody changed from married to single or married to it's complicated. And so they shoot off a message to that person saying like, hey, we'd love to help you if you want us to. And like, that's not something people are going to be comfortable with in 2019.
Yeah. And there are, the way that the example you just described might create some issues with solicitation as well. If you're proactively reaching out to people you don't know to communicate marketing or advertising messaging based on a status change, especially if it's, status like marriage status. So, it creates some interesting issues. And then there's also like, is it false and misleading to lead someone to believe that they're talking to a firm or a lawyer when it's actually just the bot? I think that's another one where it's like, you probably want to be, if you're going to implement these things, you better say, this is not me, this is my bot.
Yeah.
And then does that defeat the purpose? Because like you said, people might be less inclined to actually communicate if they think it's a bot versus I want to talk to a person, And then it's like, how different is that than your bank's like IVR message? It's like, press 1 to talk about checking, press 2 to talk about savings.
You have a good voice for that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think now that we've kind of unpacked this a little bit, my biggest issue is all of this new technology is so fun and so exciting and so efficient and so automated, and then we lose sight of the impact it actually has on the audience. And if you're using one of these technologies, go shop yourself and see what it feels like. Does it feel like you're actually interacting with something that has artificial intelligence? Maybe.
Maybe. So, jury's still out on that one. Maybe, we would love to hear from people if they have interesting things they're doing with AI. And
absolutely. Prove Gyi wrong. Show me your AI in your legal marketing and how that's working. And don't tell me that it's part of your proprietary algorithmic PPC bidding strategy, because I hear what you're saying, but show me it, right? That's the other thing about AI and algorithms is like, yeah, we're doing all this cool stuff, but we can't tell you because it's proprietary. Show me the results.
Yep. In a similar vein to AI, and intentional advertising is the personalization of marketing, and just how that kind of plays out. It's partly into social media ads and algorithms, like those Instagram and Facebook ads. Like I, they know me.
Mm-hmm.
They have me down to a science and know like exactly what I want and when it changes, like when I'm feeling healthier, when I'm when I'm not. And it's amazing. But more than that, kind of the I think of this also as segmented content, segmented content marketing. I guess this is where I had chatbots, but really kind of the how are you figuring out exactly what it is you want your audience to be reading.
Yeah. So I'm 100% with you on this one. It's kind of funny because we did the AI and then personalization right after, and obviously there's some overlap there. But if the suggestion is the publishers and platforms are going to get a lot better at helping advertisers target based on personalization, 100%, right? Like there's no doubt about that. And so, yeah, they have the platforms and publishers have huge data sets that they can leverage to make more targeted and personalized ads. And I've certainly been a victim of them. I mean, I'm a very not really buy stuff from social media type of person. And I've got to tell you, they've got me. I bought some Michigan specific stuff, and I bought some whiskey specific stuff. And yeah, they hit me with the right ad, with the right messaging at the right time. And that stuff works. Again, I think for a lot of, I think trying to find how that's going to apply to legal is
Yeah.
interesting. And so like you had mentioned, no, your example, if it's like show ad, if you can find ways to show ads to people who change marital status, that's different to me than the idea of like some kind of automated bot reaching out, right? So it's like, yes, there's no doubt that the platforms are getting better at segmenting and providing more options for segmenting. I think the other thing too to keep in mind that comes along with this, because most of them are publicly traded companies, is you're going to see a continue of organic reach diminishing. And if you want to play ball, you have to buy the visibility, especially on Facebook. We've already been seeing that with, I forget what they call it, reach apocalypse, but basically the idea that your organic reach from a business page goes down. And in order to get your message in front of an audience, you've got to continually pay for it, but they're giving you more tools to be able to make it more targeted and segmented. And yada, yada, yada.
Who we need to talk about with this and how granular you can get is we need to talk to Marty Weintraub of Aim Clear.
Let's get him.
And yeah, because
I'm sure Marty's listening to this podcast.
Well, he does live in Minnesota.
There
So, maybe I can track him down in the great north. And when it's cold.
We should do a Marty episode if you'd be willing.
Because I would love to know like what he is seeing. I watched a talk with him, or was at a talk with him last in the spring, I believe last spring, and that was his response to Facebook changing the way you could do advertising was really interesting, or do targeting was really interesting. But they've made a lot more changes, so we'll have to check in with him about that and see what they're doing.
2019 trend, get Marty Weintraub.
Yes, but really, personalization is becoming more and more of a thing. And so making sure you know who the clients you're attracting are interested in, or making sure that you are changing your marketing to get more towards different clients that you would want to attract. Like if you are a divorce lawyer, but you go, I tend to work with women who are the breadwinner getting divorced and trying to not provide spousal support to their husbands in the divorce, then make sure all of your marketing content is around that. You don't have to be that as a end all be all for your law firm, but just make sure that you're talking more to those people.
Right. Yeah, and making sure that your bid strategies and targeting, matches that. I think
Yep.
like those examples, 100%, that's going to continue to get better and better. And as much as people might, although everybody talks about how freaked out they are by all this targeting and whatever privacy issues, but no one seems to be. You look at the adoption rate of opting out of, one, just using platforms in general, but two, using technology to prevent tracking. The simple answer is you didn't see a massive migration to DuckDuckGo.
No,
So people say they don't like it, but they also kind of are complicit.
it's true. I mean, I know people who panicked and went to use it for a while, but then it was like, just go to Google.
Right.
Superior.
Maybe we'll see a difference. But I just saw
Yeah.
Rand just published something that talked about Google market share, and I didn't actually dive too deep into it, but I don't think Google's hurting.
No, that's true. They're not hurting.
Yeah. So.
Okay, what's next? Next up, coming back around.
Coming back
Voice
around.
search.
Voice
Yep,
search.
we had to talk about it again. It was on all the lists, and I found this little quote from Chief Marketer.
Chief Marketer. Who is Chief Marketer?
Yeah, the website.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not just our chief as a marketer.
Or she. Or
they are not just the person in charge of all marketing.
Right.
But the quote is, by 2020, it's expected that 50% of all searches will be voice searches. And by 2022, voice commerce sales will reach 40 billion.
That sounds bold there, Chief Marketer. Especially the 50% of all searches are voice searches. So this gets back for me is like, what are we counting? Are we counting voice assisted searches? So here's an example at my household. When I say, okay, Google, play Baby Shark, are you counting that as 50% of all searches are voice searches? Or, okay, Google, what's the weather in Chicago? Is that in your 50%? Or are you talking about 50% are going to be transactional searches like, okay, Google, buy me that awesome Michigan jersey?
I mean, I think they are talking about the first part of what you're saying. I think it's more transactional or more just like questions. It's more voice assistant. And that's the thing that we're not seeing broken down in these trends and like, oh, here's what you need to do. That creates all sorts of panic to get the number one SERP spot. And in reality, like people are typically not in their kitchen asking their Amazon or their Google for where the nearest lawyer is. They're doing it on their mobile device.
Yeah, I think that's right. Now, with respect to legal, I do think we're going to start to see the uptick in, not transactional, but informational queries, and not specific to like asking, who's the best personal injury lawyer in Chicago, but things like, I don't know, I was going to make one up, like asking a question about like child custody in Illinois, or, some of those more like life legal questions. I could see more and more of that happening. And so I think that there's a place for making sure you've got structured data on your sites and, frequently asked questions sections on your site, and all that kind of stuff is important. But I'm still a little bit skeptical about that 50% number, and then voice commerce sales number. That could be. I mean, that depends on a lot of factors. And not to mention the fact, and again, this is like a 1-year prognosis, but prognostication. If you ask me the same question over the next 10 years or 15 years, for sure, because go look at what the little people are doing, the young people, like little people as in toddlers, maybe not toddlers, but 5-year-olds, whatever age these young people are starting to use these devices, depending on your outlook on all of this stuff, their natural inclination, the example I always think about is watching young people talk to the remote control on their TV and asking it to play stuff. Like their default buttons, they're like, what are these buttons for? Like, I'm just asking the remote to play something. Like that's their default position.
Yeah. Although the only challenge I would say to that is that I think because we do have so much more information available to us at our fingertips, I think that people have been becoming more interested in finding the answers for themselves. And so getting just one answer from Google or Amazon is not going to be enough. In my opinion, I think they will go, okay, well, that was one. All right, now let me go look them up online. Or, I'm only getting one result. I don't want that. I want four. So they're going to go switch back to their device that's in their hand. I just think that people want to be more in charge for things, especially like legal, than getting just one result and one option. Like we're
Right.
not a one option society anymore.
No, definitely. And it's a really interesting example too, because we know that legal services consumers are being more discerning in, even one of the things that's been plaintiffs lawyers have brought this up is that, plaintiffs lawyers have been practicing for a long time. It used to be someone gets referred your name, they come to you, they have a conversation with you, assuming that you seem to know what you're talking about and give them a good experience. They hire you, sign retainers on the spot. And now people are coming in with, let me get back to you. I'm interviewing 5 other attorneys. I'm interviewing 10 other attorneys. That's been a big change, like fundamental shift in how legal services consumers are actually hiring lawyers. And so I think that that's a really good point, especially in the context of voice. Now, the counterpoint might be like, well, yes, and Google is also going to learn that. And so, if you do, like even on my assistant, if you like open your phone up and download the Google Assistant and do a search like, show me the best personal injury lawyers in Chicago, they're going to give you a filtered local pack a lot of the time. So you're still getting those local pack results just through voice. But in certain other instances, yeah, they're reading the featured snippet, which is just a one answer type of thing. And so will that be enough to hire you? Probably not, but it will be very compelling in terms of getting in their consideration set, because you're the answer that comes up when they actually do that search. So even if they don't hire you on the spot, they might call you at least, or they might send you a message.
Yeah.
But good points.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it does evolve and whether it comes more into play. But as far as we're concerned, I think it's still, it's not there yet.
It's nascent.
Yes.
It's my big word.
Video.
Love it. Love video.
You like VHS tapes or?
Yeah, beta. No, I think the thing for me in video is like, yeah, it's as we move into a more hiring a lawyer for a lot of people is a scary process, and a big part of their decision making is going to be like, do they like you? Do they think they can work with you? And there's, you can demonstrate maybe your knowledge and experience in the written word, but when it comes to like getting a sense of who you are, why you do what you do, what your demeanor is, and all of those other more fuzzy human things, video just does a lot better job of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's what the proof for me in this was what Rob Schenk said about for their video podcast, is that they're not necessarily getting clients through it, but people are telling them that they're watching them and saying like, oh yeah, I watched that, that episode, and that's exactly what happened to my grandma, or that sort of thing. And so then I knew to call you. And so you're demonstrating expertise, you're letting them get to see who you are. And it's awesome. Like if you still aren't comfortable with video, just start practicing, because it's a thing, people. Instagram stories, I'm seeing I'm seeing some actually really good ones from some different lawyers out there, and then also lawyers just putting little videos on their different social media platforms, and obviously Instagram is the place to do it. But reminder, if you are putting video up, use a captioning service and add captions to it. This may be a little hypocritical because every once in a while I forget to do that for ours, and so it's just like you have to do it for everyone, but it has to be part of your process. For anybody listening, he just shook his head furiously at me. Like,
well, they're watching us, right? This is on video.
Well, I mean, this is also will be on YouTube, but if you're not watching,
yeah, no, I
yes.
was going to make that point. I think that it's one, and one of the things I've got is a top of mind for me because I've got some be presenting on this topic, but accessibility, more and more important, should be a priority for your messaging. And yeah, if you're not doing captioning, if you're not finding ways to provide transcripts and alternative accessibility options, like your videos are not accessible, and they're also not, most people, I don't remember what the stats are, maybe you have them off the top of your head, but Facebook reports that, or maybe it's not Facebook, somebody that studies these things was reporting that most video watching is not, people aren't clicking on the video, they're just watching the captions in their feed.
Oh yeah, it's like 80%.
There you go, 80%. Thanks, Kelly.
Social media videos.
That's that.
Yeah, they don't watch with the sound on, and like you have to even in Instagram stories, like big Instagram influencers even have to put sound on icon in their videos, because otherwise like people are just never going to watch the videos with sound on.
Right.
In fact, when I do watch Instagram stories with the sound on, it annoys my husband very much.
There you go. Confession. You heard, don't annoy your husband or wife or significant other with.
But why wouldn't you watch with the sound on?
Why don't you wear headphones?
Nah.
I actually get, I'm very sensitive to sound. That's an episode for another day, but my wife, it knows, like when sound comes on her phone, she like always looks over at me to see how much it's bothering me. And usually it's a high level. My poor wife. Sorry, Claire.
I will not say my poor husband. He's doing just fine. He can handle it.
So
he's a loud phone talker, so he's got that.
Loud phone talker.
Yep.
All right.
Anyway, let's get back to, okay, so for video, yay, yes, keep doing it. Do it in all sorts of ways, experiment, get comfortable with it.
Get comfortable, and, I think the other thing I always try to say is don't go and just do the transcript from your commercials or read website copy into a video and put it on YouTube. No one wants to see that. Think about what you can put on video that might answer a question, be useful, be entertaining, share a funny story, talk about why you're doing what you're doing, but don't tell us about how hard you fight and how long you've been a lawyer and where you went to law school, because I've got some surprising news for you. No one cares.
Yes. Some really good lawyers to follow, I will just say, on Instagram and see what they're doing with videos.
Drop some names.
Lifting Lawyer, which is Shannon Montgomery.
Great.
She's amazing, and she's talking about life stuff, lawyer stuff, all of that. This is a little different, but Nicole Abood she's just great to follow for these things and talking about business stuff. Esquire Lorray on Instagram is great. Legally Jasmine. Let's see. I've got all sorts of them.
We'll put some more in the show notes.
I'll put some more in the show notes. I'll kind of put my top 10 people who I just think they're doing really great stuff. Oh, Stephen Gersten, gotta mention. He puts
sounds like a blog post.
Yeah. Or a blog post. There we go. Lawyers of Instagram. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna jot that down.
There it is.
My pen is dying.
And we're back.
Okay, Gyi, let's talk about email, because this, I have heard, all of the influencer marketing articles are talking about how email is making a resurgence.
Huge. Email, Well, I never thought email really went anywhere, but email is one of the most sacred places that we have online, in my opinion, because one, we are very good at filtering email, and so we can report spam, and we can, you know, do a black hat. I'm sorry, blacklist IP addresses. So if done well, email is like one of the most uh, captivated audiences that you have on the web. And so you got to really respect email, right? So this is not we're seeing a resurgence in email. So turn up your email newsletter spam. This is recognize that email still is a very good place to get your messaging in front of people, stay top of mind. But you've got more than Facebook, more than any other place that we put stuff out online. You've got to respect people's inboxes, opt in, coming up with good ideas and creative content that people actually want to consume. Look at those email marketing reports like open rates and click-through rates. Ask feedback from the people on your lists so that you make sure that you're always giving them stuff that they find valuable. Check your unsubscribes and your spam abuse reports. But yeah, I think that, and generally speaking too, this is one of those areas that I think lawyers, we've talked about this before, but continued trend, missed opportunity. Keep nurturing those client relationships and referral relationships via email over time. Like, the relationship doesn't have to necessarily stop when the representation stops. And so sending someone an email on Labor Day or happy birthday or, some kind of other relevant thing that you think that they might find valuable and segmented, extremely good way to stay top of mind with people. Look, there are plenty of practice. I know a lot of the criminal defense attorneys on here might be thinking, oh, well, I'm not staying in touch with they don't want to talk to me. My former clients don't want to talk to me because I helped them through a really difficult time. They're trying to put it out of their mind, and that's fine too. But I think that you'll find that there are a lot of lawyers, a lot of practices that can benefit greatly from nurturing former clients and referral relationships via email.
I agree mostly with what you're saying.
Good.
I think there is so much email abuse out there, and the filtering aspect as well. Like, a lot of stuff isn't getting through. But really, for me, it almost feels intrusive sometimes when I'm like, oh, where's this email coming from? Why are you still emailing me? But some of that is just my own personal issues, obviously. But I think there's just so much email abuse out there that you have to do everything that Gyi said. And if you're not giving people a bigger chance to opt out rather than just like a teeny tiny unsubscribe button at the very bottom of the email that's hard to get through, and then you ask them 3 times whether or not they really truly do want to unsubscribe, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So because then your emails just become an annoyance to them. So follow Gyi's rules and
don't annoy people.
Yeah.
I'll also, another thing too, it's like tangentially relevant to email is getting opt-in permission to market via email outside of email. So things like custom audiences, right? So if someone comes to your site and does something to opt in to receive regular updates from you, or you can there's a variety of ways you can do this, but and then to be able to use those email addresses in a custom audience on Facebook or custom audience on LinkedIn. That is a direct addressable marketing message that you're sending to somebody. Again, get their permission, get the opt-in, but that works way better than a cookie does for targeting, right? Because you know exactly who you're marketing to, if there's the same email they're using to log into LinkedIn or same email they're using on Facebook. So that's just it's not really the same thing that we're talking about with email marketing, but I think it's something that's worthwhile to put out there, because I do think that if there becomes a tipping point where people are pushing back on cookies and incognito browsers and privacy, the custom audience is going to continue to become more and more valuable, because that's going to be like much more authentic targeting than what the machines are able to build profile wise based on personalization IP. But I know that people disagree with that, but I'm very big on being able to build marketing message around custom audience.
100%.
100%.
All right. So, last thing, because we already talked about visual search, which was the last thing on my list. Let's talk about influencer marketing a little bit, because this is one that I desperately want to know if any lawyer or law firm out there is using influencer marketing for their firm or their practice itself. Because I've seen Mitch Jackson, who has some other stuff besides lawyering going on. He, wrote his book on using social media that got retweeted by Gary Vee. And so that is a great use of influencer marketing. They happen to have a connection. So that was how that happened there. But this is like everybody says influencer marketing. Try to engage with influencers, but like I have no idea how a lawyer or a law firm would do it unless they get an influencer as a client and they're willing to talk about their case.
Yeah, maybe. I think it goes back to this idea of like, what are we talking about here? I think, Mitch is a great example, and he'd be another person that I would suggest people check out what he's doing on Instagram and Facebook and live video, and get his book, of course. But the other side of this influencer marketing coin is the Kardashian effect, right? So, and I think that the influencer marketing in that context is actually on its way out. I think that there are going to be there's going to be more accountability required of influencers, right? So it's not, a lot of the influencer marketing is get somebody who's got 500,000 followers to talk about your product, and then it rains. But I think that people are going to become more discerning, a little more skeptical. I wouldn't be surprised to see the FTC getting a little bit more involved in roping in some of this influencer marketing stuff. That's not to say that it's going away anytime in the short term, but again, like everything else, I think people are going to get better about discerning, filtering, making decisions based on connections. Like one of the things that I know I see all the time, at least for me, and maybe I'm not a good example. I'm 40, so what do I know? But getting a recommendation from somebody that you know, like, and trust, regardless of whether it's in the real world or on Instagram or Facebook, has more value in general than, Tom Brady telling me to not eat peppers because they cause inflammation. Again, that's just my kind of viewpoint, and that's nothing again. I mean, these influencers, like, more power to you, but in the marketing mix and the time and money that you're spending as a lawyer trying to market your practice, I would say that this is a very small piece of the pie. I think nurturing relationships, and again, that's the thing from the start is like, if you're talking about influencer marketing in the context of building relationships, nurturing relationships, whether they're referral relationships or professional networking relationships, I think that that's exactly what you should be doing. If it's like connecting with influencers so that you can get your name dropped in front of somebody that's got a big following, I'm more of a shrug on that. If it works for you, great. Yeah. But I'm not so sure that that's where I'd be spending a lot of time and money.
100% agree. I'm so glad that you ended up making the connection of it's more about connecting with people in your circle or in the legal circle to build out a referral network in this context than it is about getting your skinny tea in the hands of Kendall Jenner.
Right. And another great example I think is doing a good job. If again, I don't know if he would qualify what he does as influencer marketing, but the Mo Show comes to mind. And I would say go check out the Mo Show on Facebook. But he's doing live video with sometimes he has like I've noticed he has state legislators on, but they're talking about issues that his audience might find relevant and making those connections. Like in that capacity, if that's the influencer marketing we're talking about, I think that's very valuable. I just think that in terms of like the quote unquote product placement for celebrity influence stuff, I don't really see it, but I'd love to be proven wrong. So if you're making influencer marketing work and you're willing to come on, we'd love to have you as a guest to talk about it and tell us how we're wrong.
Yeah. I think the way this would actually work in the legal space is more for the legal tech vendors to have sort of the legal influencers tweeting and Instagramming about the products they're using or the services they're using and what they like. But that's really just kind of an endorsement unless they're getting a discount for doing those things.
Right. And that's the rub, right? Because not all of those relationships are disclosed. And so, the FTC's already tried, I mean, I don't know how well they're enforcing it, but they already have guidelines and rules for sponsored content and blogging and that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be, you want to talk about a trend, I wouldn't be surprised to see more of that coming out for influencer marketing. Again, I don't know how enforceable it is, but, especially if you're a lawyer that doesn't want to walk lines with false and misleading advertising, I'd be very careful about how you're engaging those people for your advertising and marketing efforts. Put those disclaimers.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%. Awesome.
Great.
Well, we made it through another marketing trends episode, year 2 of Clienting's marketing trends.
Can't believe we've been doing this for a year now.
I know. It's pretty great.
Time flies when you're having fun, Kelly.
It does. It does. I know. I have to say, listening to our episode from last year, just like we have learned so much and about podcasting, and we've come a long way. And so if anybody has listened for the last year, like, thank you so much for being part of our audience and helping us be able to keep doing this, because it's been really, really fun for Gyi and I, and it's just been a really cool thing to be able to kind of share our knowledge, especially Gyi's like long legal marketing specific knowledge with everyone. And so yeah, thank you everyone.
And thank you for everybody that's helped us do this, right? So our guests, the people that have been submitting feedback, people that have been sending show topics, like that to us is like the most valuable part of this, because you're telling us what you want to hear, topics you want covered, and a lot of you are volunteering your time to come on the show. So we really appreciate that. Keep it up. And as always, if you want to be a guest, don't hesitate to reach out and contact us. And thanks for all those that have collaborated with us.
Yes. Have a great 2019, everyone.